It's the Kenya Pipeline staff quarters, Donholm at the Greenspan Mall, Komarok at K Mall, Ruai along Kangundo Road, Eastleigh on General Waroingi Road, and some of the specialists available at the Aga Khan University Hospital Clinic in your neighborhood include pediatricians, gynecologists, cardiologists, urologists, family physicians, neurologists, nutritionists, psychiatrists, ENT specialists, dentists, dermatologists, amongst others. Visit any Aga Khan University Hospital Medical Center in your hood today and call 0730 011 888. That's 0730 011 888. The Aga Khan University Teaching Hospital, world-class care here and now. All right, so today is the 8th of July. Obviously, it's a day after Saba Saba. And joining us for a post-mortem, essentially, of this conversation is Advocate Duncan Okach. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. Good to see you.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
You are safe, you're sound. We confirm that we're doing that with everybody that we see every day. It's necessary to do, though.
It's very necessary at this
times.
day and time.
Indeed.
Yes.
There's a thin line between peaceful demonstrations and hooliganism. We've been seeing a lot of this. It's a tool that has been used by many for long. But then now, how does it then evolve in the legal spaces and the constitutional spaces in which we are operating? We're going to get into that, the nitty-gritty of that conversation this morning, because unfortunately we're treading on, interesting ground, and many would call it dangerous or not so safe. So let's open that up a little bit. But Dennis is going to welcome you to the show with today's proverb. We'd like to hear your interpretation of it.
Yeah, today's proverb comes from Kenya, 254. And if you look at Kenya, there's a lot to celebrate, the pride of Africa. And you look at the economy and how it is performing, despite the troubles that we have, relatively stable and continues to grow. Now, you look at our athletes and how they continue to raise our flag high, talk about the recent world records that we just broke, and we continue to celebrate our athletes, talk about how we continue to push on. Look at our agriculture, biggest economic player in the country's GDP. Look at our hospitals, technology, M-Pesa, one of its first across the world and continues to change the trajectory. A lot to celebrate about the country, but as well, there's a lot that we also suffer from. The political discourse in the country and the need for people to just be heard. One would hope that the future is brighter for the country and we can't lose hope. But our proverb today, a child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. How would you interpret that, Wakili?
Indeed, man is a social being. And I think that's why even in the Bible, once God created Adam, he saw that Adam will be lonely and indeed required company. That company did not come only from Eve, but largely from now the children and later on the generation and generations that followed. So to that extent, of course, once you are a human being, the moment you face absolute or utmost rejection, of course you react. There's that young man who said man's nature is to retaliate, and became a very big word. So naturally, you find that if you are not embraced, you will just naturally retaliate, and that then means that the society has to deal with those things. And I think where we are, what we are facing is actually summed up in that word, retaliation. We have a retaliation from a generation that feels they are neglected, they are not embraced. They have problems which should have been sorted ages ago. And I remember Uhuru Kenyatta once said that one of the major problems that we will face, and I think by the time he was saying that, he may have had an inkling that we may face it when he's already out of power. But he said it in a prophetic way, that one of the major problems this country will face is not those things that Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and later Moi came to say, the 3 or 4 ills, lack of education, poverty, disease. One of the major problems of our day will be that issue of a neglected youth, a youth that is despondent, that they have no hope of a tomorrow. When you have nothing to lose, you see, It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, and that's why we find ourselves where we are.
Aptly put.
Well done. It's great to hear that observation and then be able to explain it more and apply it to our times, for sure. Those who do come up with these proverbs are seers, I always say. That it's got to be a brilliant thing that you can do to come up with a proverb that can go and stretch and cross generations and be a lesson in future times and in present times as well. So yesterday was Saba Saba, and we saw some terrible things. There's a lot of conjecture out there at the moment. There's also a lot of allegation. But one thing that seems to be a cloud over all of this is that, yet again, there's a lot of death, there's a lot of loss, and there is a huge negative feeling that's hanging in the clouds at the moment. We can want to be positive, but we can also take the position and be truthful and be factual, because those two are not the same. Being factual and truthful are not the same. But we can do both at the same time. So death occurred yesterday. Another 10 people died. We saw that there was wanton destruction, again, of property. There was burning, there was looting, but there were no protests yesterday. And so now when we're looking at trying to, and unless there were protests in certain places that I didn't see, perhaps then we can correct that. But there were no protests per se. We saw a lot of violence being taken into neighborhoods, into places where people then live, residential areas. The city was locked down, that's for sure. Many cities, many towns, then there was heavy police presence. But then the one thing that has become a word that we have used more recently has been goons, hooliganism, goonism, whatever that may be, and over again. And we're now asking ourselves, how do we draw the line between protests and this hooliganism, which seems to be a tool in the hands of many an individual or groups of people who would like to control a particular narrative? So how do we draw that line as we start off in this?
You know, if you look at the Constitution, it envisages protests which are peaceful. And I think many people get the word protests wrong, because they think protests should be akin to anarchy, to a state of, civil disobedience. But that is not the definition as per the constitutional norms and terms, because it means that, and that's why the Constitution says you'll be protected when you are protesting, so long as you are peaceful and you are unarmed. So that is the kind of environment. In Kenya today, we come from a position where we had a lot of issues in terms of how do we protest. If you look at the age of the Mau Mau age, you'll find that for them to deal with the Mzungus then, it was protests by itself, but there was no other way of expressing it other than through violence, because the way that Mzungu tried to quell it was also through force. So they had no other option but to use that. But at a point, you find that what took us home is not the battle in the field. It's not the battle in the bushes. It is actually those people who came out, who are now well-educated, who could actually express our desire to have self-rule. And so that's where the Jomo Kenyattas came to be known. That's where Kina Tom Mboya and the rest came to be known. And because there was an aspect of, now let's sit down, let's understand each other. Most wars in this in the world, the First World War, the Second World War, was not won just on the battlefield. People had to later on come and sit down and agree that this is how we are now going to deal with it. As much as the current president of America indicates that, strength is what brings peace. But ideally, if you look at it, mainly, actually when people sit on the table, you'll get peace. In now our context, you'll find that the problem that we have is that historically, from that point onwards, we've continued to use violence as a means of protesting. And it has actually been, for you to know that this protest has been successful, it is measured by how violent, how violent and disruptive it was to the normal life. And that's why you are being told that it must be a holiday. Ordinarily, protests are supposed to just take place peacefully, and we saw it in Kenya, and that's why I'm saying we have a generation that can do it very differently. Last year we were talking about the advent of the Gen Z demonstrations. You saw that they just went out without any weapon, only with their phones, with songs, and maybe football here and there. And do you know that was so effective that the government actually saw that this is something that we need to listen to? And it was so effective. Unfortunately, the politics in this country is that the only other way for politicians to deal with such things is to bring what they all ordinarily do when they are campaigning, when they want votes, is to bring goons. In this country, when you talk about goons are affiliated to politicians. And for anyone now in this country to feel like you are going to be an MP, you are going to be a senator, you must come not only with money, not only with persuasion, but you must be accompanied by your own set of goons. Without that, you are told you will not stand a chance.
Or you rent a goon, buy a goon kind of thing.
Yes, of course, you rent, tomorrow it's yours, tomorrow is against you. It's about money. But at the end of the day, you must come set with your goons. And to that extent, when it comes to now dealing with these particular demonstrations or protests, you find that now goons are invoked in these particular processes. And these goons, unfortunately, today you use them to suppress this particular or for a certain purpose. But when they see an opportunity, they will take advantage of it. And that is why you find that maybe people who deploy these goons may not mean that they go and steal, may mean that they just prevent or they shake, maybe they instill fear. But at the end of the day, you find that they go overboard.
But there is a purpose that they achieved at the very genesis of the introduction of goons by anybody, whether it was a political aspirant, whether it was a political, henchman, whatever it was, that the introduction of them it did something. And as gory as it may sound, it fulfilled a purpose at some time. And I wonder, who was it that said this is a tool that we can use? It's just like, as horrible as it sounds, that, during conflict, for example, sexual assault is a tool that is used to then be able to control a particular side. It's used. So the use of goons, what purpose is it? Just fear mongering? Is it scare tactics? Is it an element of control? Why is it still seen as something that can be used today? And what is it actually achieving by, you can have your goon squad? What is it?
When people feign to be shocked that, we have goons, I think those are people who are not very candid. If you look at the post-election violence, it was actually mainly dealt by goons. And it's only that we are trying to redefine the term goons. So we had people, sometimes we call them bandits, who just came out. If you look at currently, we have Mongikis in the central region. They are used politically when it is expedient to use them. Sometimes you come and say, no, we don't want Mongikis. So you find that they have a dalliance with government. Mongiki had a dalliance with the Uhuru Kenyatta government. They have had a dalliance with this current government. I think at this point they are actually very much in bed during this cold season with this government. And tomorrow they will actually change and now say, these are unwanted groups. So it is politicians, it's the governments that use these goons. And at the point that they feel that they will serve their purposes. So it's something that unless we look at the hygienic aspects of our politics, such that we will say that we will not use goons, we will only rely on police, and then we deal with the issues of police. But you've seen even yesterday, as much as you're saying that there were no protests, I think there were protests. I think the goons that we saw yesterday were goons in uniform, and those are policemen. Because in the morning, I was supposed to come for a show here.
Yes.
but we are already told you can't pass, you can't go anywhere. Who is now protesting? It is the police who started protesting early in the morning. And by blocking, what are you doing? You are already first inciting these people. Secondly, you're already going against the tenets of the provisions of the Constitution, because I have a right to protest. The moment someone has taken a document saying that I'm actually notifying you that we will have peaceful protests and it will start from point A to point B, and you decline, you say that we will not take it, or even you take it and you say, we will not give you permission. Who told these people that they have to give anyone permission? They have no business. They have no latitude to give anyone permission. Their work is, because we are paying them every month, even this month where we've had all these protests, policemen will get their pay at the end of the month. So theirs is to do their work. They are supposed to provide security and deal with that. But unfortunately, if you deploy policemen to actually go and put roadblocks left, right, and center, this police manpower is supposed to be helping protect citizens and their property elsewhere. You are creating a lacuna in terms of security elsewhere. And that is why people take advantage, because they already notice. Then tomorrow you'll be saying that, the goons were deployed. Man, in terms of the old adage, you'll be told that every man has a capacity of being the best. Half of your soul or heart has the capacity of you being the best person ever, but half of it has also the capacity and potential of being the worst ever, the Matakweis and the rest. It is always there, inherent in every man. It is up to you to know at what point do you touch this part. But when opportunity is given, that's why you find that you can elect a bishop to be a president or to be someone in the bank, and they steal. Then you'll wonder why. This guy was not stealing. It's only that there was no opportunity offered. So the moment you create that space for insecurity, for lack of policemen, for lack of proper supervision, of course, the end product we'll see problems on the other side. And that's why you saw during yesterday's protests, as much as the CBD was not infiltrated, unfortunately, the pressure that was there was now exerted in the estates. And that is, I don't think that is supposed to be the way to go, but that unfortunately is what the government seems to want. So it would have been better to concentrate this. Let's say, let these people come to Uhuru Park, let them go to Kamukunji, where Raila Odinga and wanted them to go. But the moment you block them, it means protest starts from wherever they are. Our children are there, our mothers are there. It's actually a very chaotic scene when you see tear gas being used in residential areas. We have people who are very sick who cannot fathom that aspect of tear gas. And when things are written properly in due time, you'll come to realize that it's not just about the deaths, it's not just about the injuries. There are long-term consequences that people will face.
So, Wakili, you look at the protests the way they happened yesterday, and you have to look at the right to protest under Article 37 and also the right of movement under Article 39. And you look at the agencies that have been deployed to curtail all these rights that are in the Constitution, the police, and one begs to ask the question, if we are willingly breaking the law, then how exactly are we using the same law to stop a right?
I don't know what you mean by willingly breaking the law. Who is breaking the law?
The police.
Oh, the police. The police, that's why I've said they are the first. If we are to talk about goons, they're the first line in terms of goons with uniform. But at the end of the day, you look at it and we say, what did we expect as Kenyans? You know, in 1997, Charles Taylor went on a rampage of a killing spree, killed so many people. And when it came to election, people elected him, and people are saying, were being asked, "You are electing him?" Yes, I'm electing him, but I know he killed my dad, he killed my mom, he killed my brother.
It's
but
interesting because there were actually people who lost limbs who voted in that election.
Who voted.
It's
And
very true.
What do you expect? Come to Kenya 2007. We know what happened. We know people who suffered in Kiamba and the rest. But when it came to 2002, after Uhuru Kenyatta won and told people that this word is not just a joke, you don't just, vote out of emotions. And they are told a sword in other people's hands can really turn chaotic. Today, most of those people who say, give us our thief, we do not see any problem. This thief steals our hearts, and we are okay with that. Are the people who are now suffering more, economic-wise, business-wise, and actually are the people who are out on the streets. And that's a fact. And I like what you said, facts are there. And facts are stubborn. So that is a fact that we have to live with, that people must now learn, when we were told choices have consequences, we yelled and, but those are consequences we have to live with. And that's an unfortunate, stubborn fact about life, that once you decide to choose, even now, if you say it's one term, it's whatever term, it's about what is the choice. Is it just about voting emotionally, that it's one term and I'm voting this person out? What is the alternative? Who are you voting in? By voting out, you're voting in. So who are you voting in? It may be a case of out of the frying pan into the fire.
Okay, yesterday there was one voice that spoke after all the guns and the tear gas, well, as they were continuing. And this voice was the voice of Raila Odinga. He, before Saba Saba, said he was one of those who actually were the forefront starting this at Kamukunji. And he was urging protesters to stream to Kamukunji grounds, not go to the streets of the Central Business District. And he said he was going to take the lead and he was going to go to Kamukunji. But at 4 p.m., he then called for press briefing. And I listened to that entire press briefing. He started with giving the history of where the country's come from to where we are today. But I want to just fast forward to something that caught my attention, which was his timetable. And the timetable here is there is need to have dialogue that will lead to a referendum that will then have binding reforms. From what he said yesterday, what do you read from it? Because there are two aspects here. One, he's part of the broad-based government, contextually speaking. He's in there. He can pick a phone call and call President Ruto. Yet from within, and we've seen this before, I'm just trying to follow through a pattern here. He actually talked about the police being a force and being a service has not changed anything. He went ham on a lot of things that everybody else would agree with. But he was saying, look, from where I sit, the direction, and we need to shift this narrative away from everything else, and now we need to sit down, we need to dialogue, which will lead to a referendum. What do you read in all this?
You see, Raila's actions are akin to, Father Christmas, who has been giving you, presents from the bag every year, and does not realize that now you are a grown-up person who is over 15 years old, that those presents will not amuse you. Raila is, what you saw yesterday is just trying to recycle the same things he's been doing left, right, and center. You notice that when Raila had his own handshake with, and there's a history to that, I don't want to go so far, but when he had his own handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta, they came up with Building Bridges Initiative as a solution, ended up with an attempted referendum, which was again perceived to be just to create positions, and what, of course, it had some good things, yes, therein, but majority of it, you see, it was just to try and, harness the anger that was there in the country and try to direct it in a manner that that will still end up with Raila and his side ending up getting the bad side of the bread. And they did so to an extent, served in government and such. Now, when it came to, it has come to William Ruto's time, that is last year, when Gen Zs had their own issues, Raila came up with, again, another aspect of a handshake. And to that particular extent, we ended up with NADCO, which was akin to what he's suggesting, which was akin to a conclave, but a conclave by politicians. To that extent, they ended up coming up with a raft of reforms and proposals, which, of course, again, put politicians at the center of it. They did not actually deal with the issues that were afflicting the Gen Zs at that time. And the end of NADCO has seen politicians from Raila's side ending up in government and getting plum jobs. Then what happened to the cries by the Gen Zs? Did that NADCO report actually answer the plight of these Gen Zs? Because it was a Gen Z-led protest. Gen Zs were protesting. First of all, it was the issue of the economic, the fact that they were economically not factored in the economic dispensation of this country. Secondly, it was later on, it also came in terms of the high-handedness of the police. Third, it was the corruption, the runaway corruption in this country. And when you look at those issues, were they answered by NADCO? They were not. And that is why when it came to this year, when they were remembering, the same issues still abound. So to that extent, someone then asks, now you are being given a solution by someone who was not even supposed to be on this plane. He's not a pilot. Raila has become a hijacker of this Gen Z plane. It was heading to a certain direction. He wants to hijack it and lead it to a different direction. And that is why you saw in the socials people coming out and Gen Zs coming out and saying, what is this man talking about? Gen Zs are not interested in those histories because those are the issues that afflicted Kenya that time. The issues that afflict them now are different. And that's why they had no time for, in fact, the first part, almost 3/4 of that speech was historical. It's something like Raila should have written a book and people will buy whoever is interested. But at this particular point, you look at the issues that afflict them and you look at the solution that is being, that Raila is coming up with, and you see it is an unstarter. If you are told to go to a conclave and it's an intergenerational conclave, who will you find there? You will find the people representing the Gen Zs are the children of the who is who, because they'll have proper seats there. They can be known. They can be, there'll be some remuneration here and there. You'll not find the actual Gen Zs sitting in that intergenerational conclave. You'll find these other people from this other side. It's just the same old faces, the Junet Mohammeds and the ilk of the people who sit around power. Then a solution will be their own solution. It will not be a solution of the Gen Zs and the other parents who feel that truly there is something to talk about here. So that will lead to naught. Then you come and you are told, now you have another conclave to deal with corruption. Do you really need a conclave to deal with corruption? That conclave itself will be corruption because people will be siphoning money left, right, center to support that conclave. So it will not help. Then you are told the normal solution, again, it's a referendum. That is the trick in the bag. A referendum is what politicians have wanted from time immemorial. First of all, remember, the current president did not support this particular constitution. They always yearn for a chance to correct a lot of things or to change a lot of things, which will at least maybe end up having a very powerful central government. Those are things that they will want. Two, you will find that people who are out in the opposition, and not opposition per se, but people like actually Raila Odinga himself, will want to entrench that aspect of, a powerful premier. They will want a premiership kind of leadership. Those are the things they will look out for. But what about these particular issues that affect the Gen Zs? Do we really need a referendum to be able to solve these particular issues? These are so simple issues that need very simple solutions. And the moment someone convolutes them, the intention is not to arrive at a solution. And unfortunately, if this thing, where we have reached, actually, we are saying we are at the edge of the precipice. I think we're already now.
We're in the thing.
Yes. Actually. Okay. So any time wastage is someone who is, a drowning man clutches at the straw. But we are not even bothered with the straw at this point. It's like we have decided, let us drown. If we do not take action now, remember, the next year, we may have the same things.
Let's take a break at this point because I want to come back and look at what to do.
Yes.
Because there are very many questions. Sami Wambu asks a very interesting question and says, so what do you do when, for example, goons or looters infiltrate protests which are meant for something good? This is a question. We'll come back and look at that. But there is something that you should do with your children.
Yes, and we realize that children are very important in anything.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Start your day.
How do we lurch forward? How do we move to the place whereby we start to see slowly these things would then become things of the past?
I think, unfortunately, the solution still lies in our political decisions, because solutions will only come and will be at the heart of political decisions which are made by politicians. So I always tell people that as of now, anything you'll be given is first aid. It is not actual treatment before you reach the hospital. The hospital will be 2027. At that particular point, if we do not have people who will come out and subject themselves to voters to take these positions, we will end up crying because we'll only have the same pool from which we have to choose one. And unfortunately, we'll have to end up with one. So first of all, it behoves many people, Kenyans, to at least subject themselves, not to just sit back and say, we'll sit here in the studio and Okari will complain here, but he will not subject himself and say, let me then be that alternative choice, so that we tell the people you had a choice, but you did not make it. So that is the first thing. But more importantly, is also to hold our leaders to account. Once a leader comes with a manifesto, and these leaders have very beautiful manifestos, very beautiful vision for the country, and they do not keep that, and then we are told it is the norm. Leaders are like that. These people always lie to us, and it is the norm. We don't normalize that, so that we have a process of keeping them to account outside the aspect of elections, which is now the paramount marking scheme that we have. Over and above that, it is imperative now for government itself and the people who are in power now to answer and to ask themselves, how do we deal with this issue of an educated, in fact, overly educated, knowledgeable, but poor youths who do not have an opportunity? Is it an issue that we have to reduce our retirement age so that we now accept that we need to tap into these youths that we have who will be more productive than the older generations that we have? Is it an aspect that we have to give total tax subsidies and incentives directly to these youths? Is it an aspect that we've seen in other countries that you are able to at least access a certain amount of money to sustain you as a young person, even if you do not have any employment at that particular point, and in due course, you will actually repay? And that is why you see Moi took a firm initiative of saying, any person who goes to university, the government will not only pay for your fees, but will also give you something for you to lead a decent life. And it then made these people have hope, and actually by the time they were going into the job markets, these people were people who will be productive, who knew that there will be a future. But the moment you let despondency take over the larger population that we have, unfortunately, they will make decisions en masse. Sometimes when we started, you said you like the sayings that are there because, you know, they are very informative. But most of those sayings we came from people who have lived. We call them wahengas in Kiswahili. So you won't find a young person giving you such a saying. Most of them are old. They've seen it, they've lived it, and they give you, and that's why we draw a lot of wisdoms from those. So to that particular extent, at this particular point, the young people may not be, you know, they may be very informed, but too much of that information, without directing it in terms of purpose, may be misused. And that's why, unfortunately...
Misused by whom?
By so many people. That's why I'm saying politicians can tap into that. Anyone who has money can tap into these people because they are there and they are available. Let me tell you, if these people had, you know, hope and a source of income, you cannot find people being paid peanuts to just go and destroy. Someone will even feel the shame of going to steal. Now, people are stealing. They are not even covering their faces. And it seems to be the norm.
But Okeli, the target may be the young people, yes. But over the weekend, I've come across lots of videos with what the government calls empowerment programs. And there's a particular video from Mukambani, a country called exactly where this was, where this woman was standing holding 2,000 shillings, doing a video and speaking in Kikamba. Very proud that, you know, they were walitembelewa. and whatever they were promised, they were given, they're happy, and they were saying Ruto 2 terms. And you listen to that woman talking, and you look at the comments where people are saying, we need to take ideas of our mothers, because they're the ones who've led us to where we are today. We are on the streets fighting, but look at that. She's holding 2,000 shillings she's been given, and very proud that that's now empowerment. To another video where some women groups and the chairlady of that group was complaining that they were told there is a group coming to visit them. Money was allocated, and they were promised they're going to get 40,000 for the chama. Na hiyo pesa ikukuja. So they were protesting. The money they were promised, somebody ran away with that money that was going to empower them. So we're in that culture of tokenism, and it's from the millennials, our mothers, our fathers, and now the same tactic is being deployed to target the youth. But do you think this will be effective?
But of course it will not be effective, because that's myopic and it's so temporary. And that's why we, in my view, I was saying they should look at things which are long-term, which are sustainable. The aspect of government is not to go and give tokens to citizens, and especially tokens with a target of, having political advantage based on that, or having political slavery enforced on them based on the 2,000 that you've given them. Ideally, the government is supposed to create proper infrastructure that would help these particular Kenyans, whether you are youth, whether you are millennial, whether you are old, to tap into that and attain self-living.
But don't they know that?
They know that, and that's why I'm saying, unfortunately, they know that and they promise that, but when they are in power, they do something else. Government is an umbilical cord to which all of us attach and gain our daily sustenance from it. Now, instead of being this umbilical cord, government decides to go out there and is busy building houses, trying to, things which ideally the government should not have any business dealing. Ideally, the government should be creating a proper infrastructure to which we will attract investors, to which we'll have local investors tap into that and feel that they are safe, they are okay. Today, I will tell you, if a proper research is done, and I'm sure one of these research companies will be doing, if you look at our economic situation and our attractiveness from before the Gen Z demonstrations last year, coming on to today, you'll find that we are actually way weaker, and we are actually losing out. Not to mention also the aspect of still the economic challenges which abound and cuts across every other nation. So we still go back to what I'm telling you. Unless we make positive, concrete decisions in terms of sanitizing the political space, we will end up with the same recycled promises, the same recycled complaints, and the same recycled suffering that all generations will.
Speaking of politics, politicians and everything they recycle. I'm aware that you're involved in the case of Wanjiku Thiga.
Yes.
And Peter Kawanjiru,
yes,
the two youth leaders from the DCP party.
Yes.
So what we saw was early last week, they were initially arrested, then released on bond, and then rearrested. And we saw a shocking video of how they were moved from this door to an unwaiting van, and the stories of terrorism. So when we talk about repression from the streets now to abductions to the arrests, and the reason I'm asking you this is yesterday I happened to speak to a lawyer who's involved in one of these cases, and she was telling me she wants to take a long break. She doesn't want to talk publicly about anything. She's now scared because even now lawyers are directly being targeted. So she wants to just stay away. And I asked her a question. Have we reached that point where then whatever it is that they are doing is now working? Because from trying to arrest, abductions, and all these things that we're seeing, then it's to silence even the lawyers. Take us through what is going on with this. I know you may not go into the details of the case, but take us through what exactly is happening here.
It's quite a sad state of affair, and I don't know the lawyer you talked to, but that lawyer, there is something that he or she is lacking, because at such points we are trained to actually be very strong, because we are a bastion of hope for the people who are oppressed. And it has been like that from time immemorial. And that's why the likes of Mandela suffered for ages for actually standing strong and being firm. Lawyers have suffered, but at the end of the day, it is a calling that we have to make. And that is why when it comes to the point where we are dealing with what happened, of course, government has a right to, or the police, to arrest whoever they suspect has committed an offense or is about to commit an offense. Once you do that, of course, you take someone through the criminal justice system and the courts do their part. And that is what they did. They took these people, at least within the time frame that was that is required by the Constitution. The courts processed their applications. But the worrying thing is that once police took these people to court, the first thing was for the DPP to ask for more time, saying that they have not yet investigated, they are still in the process of investigating, but you've already arrested people. And the courts could not hear any of that thing. In this day and age, courts cannot entertain such aspects whereby you arrest, you bring them to court, and then you want to say, now, let me investigate. What comes first? Investigate, get your facts right, get your evidence, arrest, process someone through the courts. Anything less than that is now persecution. And this is what none other than the president and the then deputy president promised Kenyans, that they will not politicize or use the justice system in a manner to advance their politics. But immediately, before even the ink dried after they signed and put the Bible down, exactly that is what is happening. And unfortunately, it's happening to even one of them who was at that table making that decision. So to a large extent, once the courts release these people, it's so sad, because the moment a court of law releases you, you are free. And if there was any other offense, it will have been brought to the fore of the court. So you cannot be released, and while you are in court, policemen come and abduct you, because that's not an arrest, that's abduction. Because we know under Article 49 how arrests are effected.
And yeah, I'm sorry, Wakili, these things happen. We're not talking about things that shouldn't happen or that we're living in an ideal world. That they happen. That no sooner has a court released someone on whatever, platform or whatever level, that we've seen rearrests happen. We've seen them, just like Dennis said, just a couple of days ago. And that police, whether you are looking at ATPU, whether you're looking at whatever arm of the police, they are agents of the judiciary. They are. So are we saying that they do not know this? Or are we saying that there is still behavior of wanton impunity happening, whereby you can do what you want, when you want, and as you want?
Actually, that is the norm, and it shouldn't be, because looking at the Constitution, it's very clear. And the likes of the late Justice David Majanja, the moment such instances happened, he will actually penalize that police officer personally, not even the state. When you look at it on this other end, you find that these particular individuals are supposed to now be charged today on the premises of prevention of terrorism. And they are told that whatever they did are acts of terrorism. When you look at the definition of and the essence of terrorism and the laws that abound and protect aspects of terrorism, you find that it is only someone who is intending to just misuse the laws that are there by preferring charges under this particular act. They know that the charges will not go anywhere, but the punitive measure and the 30-day period that they can hold this person is what they are looking at. So ideally, you look at it, and I always tell people, today you will use this same, abuse these same laws to attack your brother. Tomorrow your brother will be in that seat. We'll use the same laws to attack yourself and many others. And that is what happened in Zambia. If you look at Zambia, it's a very sad story of just a reputation. It started from Chiluba, Monawasa, and all the way. Any person who came in used the same law to actually deal with the brother. And that is why they have that debacle of the their fallen president who is to be buried in South Africa. It's the same issue. It's a sad thing. It's something that I think even the judiciary itself, if you look at the statement they put out, it's a very cowardly statement. It's a statement that someone was issuing maybe from the bedroom. It is it is something that should have been issued by none other than the CJ, standing on the platform of the judiciary or the Supreme Court and issuing a stern statement and a warning that if you do such things, you will not bring the same people to my court on Tuesday or Wednesday after you have actually desecrated these same courts. You cannot have the audacity of bringing these people to, and you'll see them coming today and the courts will just be there and actually processing them as if nothing happened.
Well, I think time runs out, but then we find ourselves at a place whereby we're having conversations about the things that are currently going on. And then it becomes a little bit difficult in terms of making steps towards where things should actually be going. But I think that as we continue to have these conversations, solutions then start to find their way through. But one thing that we must not do is not speak about them.
Definitely.
In whatever capacity. Advocate Wakili Duncan Okach, thank you for being here this morning.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good morning at 9 a.m.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.